What's up, Junior Golf Blueprint fans? Today on the podcast, we have a local by the name of Dawson Armstrong, currently out on the Korn Ferry Tour, chasing his golf ball around. He was gracious with his time to show up and sit down with me and talk what it's like going to chase that little white golf ball for a living and what it's like bouncing around on the minis. And quite frankly, the guy's got some serious game, and it's been fun to watch. The time we recorded the podcast, he just finished second in one of their events, played very well. So it'll be fun to watch as Dawson continues his career in the Korn Ferry and PGA Tour networks. So make sure you remember the name and make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And if you're not watching, make sure you come out and check us out on YouTube as we have our chats. And you should watch the YouTube channel for more great tips and content, as I just got back from an awesome experience out in California shooting a bunch of great content for you guys. So without further ado, let's get to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today on the show we got my man Dawson Armstrong, the local legend. He's out on the Korn Ferry Tour, chasing it around right now. Just had a great finish, by the way. Yeah. Congratulations on that. And played for Lipscomb, had another outstanding career at Lipscomb, and just had to reach out and say hello, especially after that last showing. And first time meeting you face to face. And thanks for coming in and do the show, man.
Dude, it's being 2 days back in Nashville.
Yeah,
that's a good way to start the week.
Heck, why not, right? I mean, it's 70 degrees. Why not sit in a room and talk?
Yeah, that sounds great, right?
Dawson, how'd you get into junior golf, man? What was your start?
So my dad was I don't want to say he was a mini tour pro, but he played golf for like 8 or 9 years. Mm-hmm. Realistically, maybe 10. And he went to Q school like 9 times. Wow. So he loved it, right? Yeah. Like he played high school golf, college golf at Lipscomb as well. Mm-hmm. Ended up playing pro golf, moved from here to South Georgia to Orlando, like most pros do. Mm-hmm. And he had me, my older brother, younger brother and sister, basically in the latter end of his career. And we lived down in South Georgia at the time. Mm-hmm. And he just, how it is. A dad ends up, say he was a basketball player in high school. He wants his son to play basketball.
Pick up a sport.
Yeah, just pick up a sport. And he obviously knew a lot about the game of golf. And he just kind of just got us out to a golf course all the time.
Nice.
Not him. My mom did.
Right.
But by his instructions, basically, it was like, hey, get them out to the course, see if they like it. And I'd say I started when I was like 4 or 5, just messing around, whatever, with my brothers, and probably around like 10 or 12, actually started taking it a little bit more seriously. Mm-hmm. Not to the point of, I'm going to practice 5, 6, 8 hours a day.
Chase the dream.
No. At 12 years old, you're not thinking of a dream. You're trying to impress all your buddies at school or something. But yeah, that's how it was. My dad basically got me into it when I was about 4 or 5, and yeah, that's all she wrote so far.
Man, that's awesome. So you have an older brother, a younger brother, and a sister?
Yeah.
Do they play as well?
So yes, they did, right?
Okay.
Like every junior golfer plays. Some of them play in college.
Right.
Some of those guys play professional golf. My older brother Dowling, actually, he was way better than me. Mm-hmm. Just way better than me. He won the Georgia high school state championship his sophomore year in the spring.
Wow.
Okay. We moved up to Nashville in that same summer.
Right.
And that fall, he won state in Tennessee.
Holy crap. So 2-time state champion in the same year.
Yeah, in less than like 5 months.
That's crazy.
And so he was way better than me. And then my younger brother, he played, and he was a pretty short little kid, but he could just, he hit it straight. He could putt pretty well. We all 3 played at Lipscomb at the same time.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So there's not a big age difference then between the 3?
No, my older brother was a grade older than me. My younger brother was 2 years younger than me. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, so 2 classes. So we had And my older brother redshirted too, so we had I think we had 2 years together actually.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was.
What
fun.
was I would say? What was that like having to get? Because I asked personally because my oldest and my youngest will be a grade apart right now, and then I have my third on the way, and he'll be in 8th grade when my oldest is a senior, right? So they'll miss each other by a year. But what was it like?
Well, if your 8th grade son, if your youngest son will end up being good
right
at a sport, maybe he can like bump up and play together. But
possibly.
That's what my younger brother Davis did.
Okay.
In 8th grade, he just came up and played with us because we were the 3 of the best 4 players on the team, basically.
Sure.
And yeah, you can do that. It's a fun dynamic. I mean, you obviously are rooting for your brother, right? Like,
because he's on your team.
Yeah, he's on your team. Yeah, you obviously want to beat him. Like 9-hole matches, right?
Right.
In high school, we would get done, and say I shot 37, whatever. And obviously we're playing a team, like a rival school across town, whatever. And as soon as we get done, you're thinking, okay, the first thing you're thinking is, did we win the match, right? Like, you want to win as a team. You also wanted to play well yourself. But of all the other guys that are on your team, you're thinking about, like, okay, what did Dowling shoot, my brother? Like, what did he shoot? Did I beat him today? Like, and usually he'd beat me. Like, it was just – he was way better, right? Like, that's just how it was.
Right.
And I mean, he was really good. The dynamic was fine.
Yeah.
But once he left and went to college, I think that was when I could finally go, okay, now I can I'm not the little brother.
Right.
Now I'm just me.
Right.
Let's see how far that can go.
Right, you're kind of getting out of the shadow and being Dawson instead of Dowling's little brother.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Like, we moved up here my sophomore year of high school, his junior year, and once he won state, and he also played basketball. He played soccer that year. So like, he was
athlete.
Yeah, a pretty good athlete, a jack of all trades, basically.
Sure.
And they saw me, and he was a big kid, like 6'2", probably around like 205 pounds. He was just a big dude.
Sure.
So like, he had that. He forced a presence, right? And me being this scrawny little kid in high school, maybe weighed $120.
Right.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, there's Dowling's little brother." That's just.
It's hard to avoid it.
Oh, so hard to avoid it. But like, once he left, it was once he left, I was like, yeah, let's go practice, let's go play, see how it goes. And senior year of high school is what changed a lot.
Yeah. So what happened then? How did you end up at Lipscomb? What was the process?
Yeah. So my junior year of high school, Dowling was getting offers from schools. He had gotten offers from Memphis, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Middle Tennessee and Lipscomb. Those were like his. When you boil it down, there's those schools, those ones he wanted to go to.
Sure.
And he and I basically was telling my parents, wherever he goes, I'm going to go.
Right.
Like, that was just what it was. And it really came down to Memphis and Lipscomb. He was about to commit to Memphis, and once he found out that Will Brewer, the coach there now,
right,
was going to be the head coach, he was like, okay, I can't leave.
Right.
I'm going to stay here at Lipscomb. And then probably about a month later, I had no clue what the term verbal commitment meant. So what I did, you're going to love this. What I did, so there were these like little recruiting parties, little get-togethers for like a bunch of recruits.
Right.
And we were going to watch Lipscomb play Belmont in the Battle of the Boulevard up there. Right. Basically the biggest event in Lipscomb athletics.
Yeah, sure.
And he had a few seats for a bunch of recruits coming in, and we were sitting in this room after having like a little dinner or whatever. I stand up and go, "I'd like to make a verbal commitment to Lipscomb," and everyone was like, "What are you doing? Why? You don't have to proclaim it to like 50 people, 20 people. All you had to do is just tell them, like, hey, I'm coming."
That's awesome.
I had no clue what verbal commitment meant. So I just
Stood on your soapbox.
I just stood up and said, "Hey, I'm coming. Like I'm coming to Lipscomb."
That's amazing.
They're like, "Great. I'm taking my talents to Nashville."
Yeah.
Instead of South Beach. It's just
that's hilarious.
And yeah, they were like, "Dude, what are you?"
Everybody else just went, "I don't know this guy."
Yeah, yeah. Coach Brewer has told me ever since. He's like, "Dawson, I don't know why in the world you thought that was a thing, but I've never had someone verbally exclaim that they're verbally committing."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's possibly the best story I've heard in a recruitment story.
Oh, I had no remorse for it at all, but everyone else felt embarrassed for me. I had no clue. So, I was like, "Hey, I'm coming to Lipscomb." They're like, "Cool."
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're all excited. Everybody else is just like, "What is this clown doing?" That's
exactly.
Awesome. So, you had a great junior career as well. And when you started getting into into it, if you will, right? You started wanting to get competitive, and the dream, if you will, started coming to light.
Yeah.
What was like the catalyst? Do you think? What was like that switch that like kind of flipped and said, "You know what? I want to do this a little bit."
Yeah. So, in high school, when we lived down in South Georgia, we went to a school that had 15 people in their graduating class every year.
That's small.
So it was small, like really, really small.
Yep.
And funny enough, so I played basketball down there with my brother, and we were, hindsight's a little bit more clear now, but at the time, we were, like, in my mind, we were a really good basketball team.
Sure.
And I played a lot, and I thought, well, I think I'm pretty good at basketball, right? Like, we knew nothing better. We were just we just didn't know any better.
Sure.
And we moved up to Nashville, and we went to Lipscomb. And, at that time, if you had asked me, "Hey, what do you love more, basketball or golf?" I would always say, just ask me in the spring or in the summer,
right,
or in the fall and winter, right? Like it was just that time of year. I loved that sport more than the other.
Right.
So we moved up here, and my first year here, I just hated basketball. I hated showing up, hated playing for this coach, hated, didn't know any guys on the team.
Right.
We definitely weren't as good as we thought we were. I basically sucked, and I found out. And so after a year of playing, I was like, you know what, I got to quit. Right. But those were the only guys I knew, okay,
right.
The basketball team, right? Because we were new, I didn't know anyone. That next year, since Dowling was going to be a senior, I was like, well, we've done this our entire lives together. I still want to be a part of the team.
Sure.
So I became the team manager.
Not sure that went over well.
Oh, it was horrible.
Like the bar of soap.
Like, hey, I'm the guy that fills up the Gatorade bottles.
Here's your towel.
Yeah, like here's a towel, or like keep the stats, or things like get all the basketballs together. It's like the most annoying, the most mundane, annoying things that you can do. Mm-hmm. I had to do on a daily basis for these kids that I hardly knew.
Right.
That were just like, take my bottle, you manager, you idiot. You work for me. I was like, this is the worst. So I did that for a full year.
That's a lot of suffering right there.
Oh, it sucked.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I quit basketball that year and became manager, it was not fun. But that was when I realized, okay, basketball is put to the side.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do that anymore. I'm going to play golf.
In it for the golf.
Yeah, that's what it was. And I basically practiced a ton,
mm-hmm.
right? There was still a little hope in me. Like after that junior year of me being manager, I was like, you know what? Let's try to give it another go playing basketball for this
mm-hmm.
team, because I was going to be a senior. I felt like I was going to have a lot of playing time. And I came back. The coach was like, look, obviously you're good. Like, you could start, but I think I'm going to start some younger guys because they got a chance to be better prospects than you being a senior. I was like, well, screw it, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I walked out after that. And really that senior, the end of junior year, whenever I was finally putting it behind me, was when it happened. And there was nothing getting in my way of practicing,
right,
and playing and getting better. Right. Like nothing. Like if it was dark, I sat out there with the car lights on. If it was a Sunday morning before church, I'd go play 18 holes at like 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. If it was, a Monday afternoon, I'd go out there and get in trouble every Monday. Mm-hmm. Just the things that it was basically things that would push the barrier, right? Mm-hmm. It would really push the barrier of, okay, what does he think he's doing? And at the time, it was really dumb, right? What kid goes out there and practices in the dark, or what kid wakes up at 6 o'clock to go play golf before they need to be somewhere at 10?
Yeah.
Like you don't do that. I was out there before the guys were cutting the greens, and I got in trouble many times.
Being in the way.
Yeah, they're like, dude, you can't be out there before
the mowers.
Yeah, before the mowers. Like, before members, maybe we can let you go, whatever. But, like, you can't be out there before the mowers.
Right.
I was like, well, sorry. Like, that's all I knew. All I knew was how do I get better.
Right.
And that's what I did.
That speaks a lot, because I think there's a lot of kids that don't realize how much sacrifice has to be given to get to that next level, right? And in this day and age, it's a lot harder to find the kids that are willing to push through the hurt, push through the lack of time with friends or video games or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like what you were saying there is very similar to what I did. Obviously, I ended up here coaching versus you're out there playing, right? So one of us did it right. But the element of sacrifice that has to go into that is what separates the kids that make it to the next level and to the next level versus the ones that
and not to sound like a old grandpa or anything, but like the phones right here are the biggest problem. Honestly, because think about this: anytime you want something, right there, you find it right here. And anytime you want to talk to your buddies, there's no disconnection, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And that was this thing that that's the thing I needed to understand. And I lost that a little bit and have started finding it again. But like, you need to have that little bit of disconnection because in order to be really good at something, you have to be isolated, mm-hmm. right? Like you cannot try to have other people around,
right,
whenever you're trying to do something really good,
right,
and and a lot of kids nowadays see the instant gratification, right? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I want to look up something, boom, it's there. Mm-hmm. I want to talk to my friend, it's right there. I'm going to talk to him, or things like that.
Can't wait to answer a text message.
Yeah, it's instant, right? Mm-hmm. And in golf and in sports,
not instant.
it's such a slow burn, mm-hmm. right? Like what I try to do is, just to give the example of the slow burn, it's every year at the end of the year, I try to honestly evaluate myself and go, have I gotten better in the last year?
Right.
Because if you look at it as a day-to-day thing, kind of like the phone,
mm-hmm.
You look at the results immediately,
mm-hmm.
and you're just going to go crazy, and you're going to become so annoyed with golf because one day you'll shoot 68 and be stoked about how you played.
Right.
Next day you'll go out and shoot 76.
Right.
Like, it happens all the time, and kids get frustrated.
Totally.
And yeah, it takes, to be good at something, you gotta be willing to be by yourself a lot, and that's something that I realized in high school, and obviously going into college, whatever. But like I was just the only thing on my mind was, how do I get better? Right. And kids all have this whole, hey, I like playing golf, right? Mm-hmm. I think I'm pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. That's going to get you to a decent school, but that's about it.
Right. There's a big difference between being pretty good at it and being elite at something. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think like you were just saying there, the slow burn is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't think of a better way to say it, because that's exactly what it is. And too many kids look for the gasoline on the fire effect that just sparks it up. And then it was funny because back in the day, this is dating me, because this was like 20 years ago.
I can't wait.
Yeah, you used to say it used to be like a fire round, like, you know what I mean, like you shot, like you careered it, was what everybody would say, right? That was your career round, and but it's a great way to make that expression of, like, anybody can put it together for one day, right? And I think it's always amusing because I've had a lot of these conversations about kids that want to play tour golf or play college golf, and then I'll sit there and like, look, I haven't practiced in 4 months, and you can't sniff beating me. Like, I hate to break your heart, but I'm only good enough to teach you. I'm not even good enough to go play out there, right? And that's always my constant reminder is like anytime I do something, the kids are kind of like, oh, how'd you do that? I'm like, I just want everybody in the room to remember I suck. Like, I'm not good enough to be on television. And so,
that is really funny. That's funny.
But I think, at the same time though, right? It's like that. And any sports psychologist talks about this, right? Yeah. It's like it's about the journey, right?
Yeah.
And enjoying the journey and enjoying that process because the win never satisfies that urge, right? It might satisfy it momentarily, right? Or a top finish, right? Fills the bank account.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's like as soon as the next day you wake up, it's kind of like back to work.
Well, that's something like last week I would like to say that was the best week of golf. Well, when it comes to money making or world ranking points, just by the numbers, that was the best week of golf I've had in my career, and that's also the most mad I've been. Right? Like
it's a funny.
Like because I don't like you don't care about if you're really concerned about how much money's in your bank account or what you're ranked, then you're not doing it for the right reason, right?
Right.
Like that's like I was obviously happy for the guy that beat me, but I was I was more and more and more pissed off.
Right.
As the car ride home went on, as I went home that night, it was about a 24-hour period where I was like, oh yeah, I'm really happy for him. Wait a second, I could have made that.
Yeah.
Wait, crap, he made that. I'm starting to replay things in my head. Start getting pissed off that I 3-putted the last hole. Getting pissed off that my putt on the playoff didn't go in. And it's just like, it's burning, right? I'm like really just mad.
Irking, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, this guy freaking took a win from me. Like I deserved, like you start getting, that's the slow burn, right? That's
part of your competitiveness, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you made a great point there that the guys that make it on tour, and obviously everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
But the ones that worry about the paycheck automatically make their day a lot harder.
Yeah.
Because if you're more worried about how much that putt is worth. Than what it actually means to win or to get the points you need to get inside the top 10 money list or whatever.
Yeah,
that is another level of just pile of crap you got to.
Yeah, it's an added layer to the mental turmoil that golf puts you in anyway, right? Like, why would you put more stress on yourself when golf is hard enough?
Totally.
Right, like you got a 7-footer with 500 people watching. Well, why would you be thinking about anything else other than making that putt?
Right.
Like, don't worry about what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, and I was listening to, it might have been Stephen Fox on Virgil's podcast. They just did one together, and I was listening to that, and they talked about, or Stephen mentioned how when he played with Ian Poulter and Bubba Watson at the Masters.
Oh yeah,
and he was talking about like for those guys, it's like an everyday thing. It'd be like him playing for 100 a hole at the country club.
Yeah.
But for them playing for a $2 million check at the end of the 4-day week is like just another day in the life, right? And I think obviously the first day you show up, and this is a question I was going to have for you is the first day you show up versus having a few years of experience. How does that feeling walking to the first tee on Thursday? Or how does that change for you as you've played on the tour?
Yeah, so I still I get nervous a lot over almost every first tee shot. I'm pretty nervous.
Right.
Like you need to be, right.
100%.
Like last week, this first hole of the tournament is like 90 yards wide. First tee shot. OB is 90 yards, right? Like you've got to almost miss the ball to go out of bounds.
Right.
And there's nothing up there, right? It's easy.
Right.
And I hit my tee shot and I was about 10 yards from out of bounds. I mean, I heel cut it. Like it was bad. I look at my caddy and go, all right, we're good. We're done. We're done with, like, finally we're off. Like,
benchmarked it behind you.
Yeah, and then, like, that was, and every single day I started on the other side the next 3 days. And it's a par 4 bender to the right with water all the way down the right. Mm-hmm. And basically, if you hit it right, you're reteeing.
Sure.
I was so nervous over all 3 of those tee shots. Mm-hmm. And I mean, really nervous because I understand, like, for me, I want to hit that shot good, mm-hmm. right? And everyone has that little bit of nice.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Tee time calls.
Oh, they have tee time calls here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Where was it that a mini tour event that I played in, beside the point. I'll go on a little rant. I'll go on a rant about that in a minute. You're going to love this. But I was nervous over every tee shot. And,
sure.
And the reason why is because you want to perform well. Mm-hmm. And also you're in a position to where every shot is magnified, right? So me going out there having those nerves is really good.
Sure.
No matter like playing for the money, the purse could have been multiplied by 10. Mm-hmm. It could have been split by 10. I would have been just as nervous no matter what, because the goal isn't to go out there and worry about the money.
Yep.
If you play well, money's going to be flowing into the account no matter what.
100%.
But if you don't play well, the Nate Lashley putts, remember that?
Yeah.
Trip Eisenhower was on Golf Channel that next morning going, Nate Lashley had to be thinking about the money just flowing out of his bank account. And I'm thinking, if he's thinking about that, he's not in that position to start with.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's what I tell the kids is, like, I try to let them replace the word nervous for excited.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're not nervous. You're excited that you're there.
Yeah.
That's why you're feeling the butterflies in the stomach. That's why, and you made another great statement there about how you want to do well, right? You're amped up. You're feeling the jitters because you want something good to come from it. And that's the only reason why that's kind of in there. And, and so what I tell kids is, like, that feeling should never go away.
Yeah.
Like, that feeling will be there. It'll come and go in the round, right? Like, you might be halfway through the last round of the state junior am, and you find out you got like a 3-shot lead. Guess what? Your emotions are going to change pretty darn quick.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so it's not something that, and I talked to a lot of parents about this too. It's like it's never this flat roller coaster.
No,
it's always this wave. You're constantly fighting ups.
If you're on a flat roller coaster, you're riding in a car.
100%.
And what's more fun?
Oh yeah,
riding a roller coaster or riding in a car?
Yeah.
Whoever says that you shouldn't have up and down emotions doesn't know athletics, right?
Totally.
Like, you need to get excited when you play well. You need to get pissed off when you play poorly, because that's what keeps you going.
Right. Well, and you made a great point about how when you had that car ride home after Sunday and losing the playoff, right? It started to irk at you, right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of people think like that's bad. It's not bad as long as you don't like let it run away from you and you check your emotion, right? Like, yes, get upset, but then take whatever is making you mad, find out where the problem was, the leak, and plug the hole and get it fixed. If you just let it eat at you and then it becomes an excuse and you find excuses as to why you didn't win. Well, I would have won if you didn't make that putt. Yeah. I'd have won if you didn't hit it to 6 feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's been, in those scenarios, right, like the last hole of the day I 3-putted. Mm-hmm. Really, really tough 2-putt. But it's one of those things where I'm in this kind of middle ground because it was really tough. It was like a 50-footer up over a ridge and onto a flat. And I thought I put 2 really good rolls on it. Mm-hmm. Clear mind, did everything I thought I could.
Right.
The ball just didn't go in. So I'm in between the zones of, do I get mad because I ended up not performing? Mm-hmm. Or do I blame it on things outside of myself because I know I did what I needed to do?
Right. Right.
And I haven't figured that out yet, because the competitive side of me goes, I don't care how well I thought I performed. It wasn't good enough.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And the whole process side goes, well, you did what you thought you should do. how can you be disappointed in yourself for doing what you thought was right? Like, so I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
But
well, that's where, it's golf is poetic a lot, but the putting is one of those ultimate ones where you, like you just said there, right? You hit the line you thought was correct.
Yeah.
You hit the speed you thought was correct, and then it didn't pan out, right?
Yeah.
It could have been a spike mark. It could have been a ball mark. It could have been the fact the grain was going the other way.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what I tell kids is like, we control everything up until the ball leaves the face.
yeah,
That's when we become a spectator with everybody else.
Yep.
We have to sit back and watch. So as long as you can go back on your checklist and say, I executed everything to the best of my ability then,
yeah,
you cannot get upset about that, right? And if the ball doesn't bounce the right way, the ball doesn't spin the right way, it doesn't release the way you thought, then that's a data collection error.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where you
that's
have
true.
To,
that's a good way to put it.
and that's where you have to analyze your data collection process, right?
Yeah.
When you so like in your case with the two putt, right? If it was a speed problem, then now we have to sit back and go, okay, when that speed didn't pan out the way I thought, how did I perceive it? How do I need to perceive it in the future?
Yeah.
Right? Or did I miss looking at the grain? Was the grain rolling different way?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, it's a lot of little factors.
But it goes back to data. It's not a performance problem then, right? If you can look back,
or at least I didn't think it was a performance problem.
right?
Yeah.
So exactly. So I mean, and I think that's where, like, I had a kid this year, and he's on an earlier episode that's going to come out before yours, but he shot 9 under in the state tournament, right, for high school. Lost by 4, came in third. You go back and look at any other year you shoot 9 under at Willowbrook, it's a win. It's a win.
I think I shot 5 under the year that I went in a playoff. Yeah, I shot 5 under and lost.
Right.
In the playoff.
Exactly. Right.
That was it.
And so, I mean, 9 under wins. I told him that 9 under wins 9 out of 10 years. Not this year.
Yep.
And you had 2 other kids beat you.
Yep.
Right. I mean, so you can't. I mean, but again, for him, it was the best tournament he ever put together.
Yep.
Right. He shot 500 in the second round, 400 in the first round. So he actually got better in the second. Right.
Yeah.
So performance-wise, I looked at him and said, "Great. There's another notch in the belt." Right. So now you have a new peak.
Yep.
And now you have something to strive towards to get closer to that more often. And then now you got to find. Let's go put 64, 65 up instead of 67, 68 up.
Yep.
And see what you got next. Right.
That's true.
So, going from college to tour golf, right? One of the things that a lot of guys I've talked to about is when you're in college, you have the coach, right? The coach is there, 6 a.m. workout, practice today at 3, qualifying on Friday, whatever. And then now you graduate and you go to the tour, and now Dawson's got to do it on his own. What was that gut check like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it wasn't really in college for me. If there were 6 a.m. workouts, I made sure I was there.
Right.
If we didn't work out that day and I felt like I needed to, I worked out that day. Mm-hmm. If we didn't have practice but the weather was fine, I went out and practiced. It was what the coaches did for me was the benchmark to maintain the level of play that you have. In order to get better than what you are, you have to go a step further.
100%.
And that's something that I felt like I did
pretty
pretty well, because I was going to say this earlier, there are guys that are really talented, right? Like, you look at the year that I graduated, you had Scotty Scheffler, who's always been great.
Yep.
Will Zalatoris, best ball striker I've ever met.
Solid.
The best.
Yes.
There's no better ball striker than him, period. I don't care who you put him up against. I don't care.
Flush it.
Him versus Dustin Johnson, Will wins every time.
Right.
Every time.
Yep.
Who was it? Doug Gim almost won a USAM. Like guys have some natural talent.
Right.
Some do. I don't feel like I was one of those guys that had that natural talent. Right. The ability to just strike the ball solid every time. It just goes where you want it to.
Right.
So for me, I knew really quickly that I either, one, was going to practice the amount that the coaches wanted me to and be a pretty good Atlantic Sun golfer, right?
Sure.
Mid-major golfer. Probably be around 100th, maybe 80th ranked player in the country, something like that. Nothing anyone's going to bat their eye at. Or I was going to work my butt off and focus on golf as much as I can and get ready for the next step.
Right.
And that's what I felt like I did. And going into pro golf, at the beginning, I almost saw it as now I'm playing for money.
Right.
Okay. If I make a good week, if I have a good week, I can take the next few days off. I can relax. I can be with my friends a little bit.
Interesting.
And that was a horrible way to look at it, because I'm a big yes guy, right? Like I will go if like after I won my week in Canada 2 years ago, Virgil asked me on the podcast that next week,
right?
And I knew, and like I had a bunch of people ask for dinner, go play golf with them and their friends, and just be like, hey, look, we got to celebrate you winning. And I fell under the spell of, oh yeah, I did do well.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like, yeah, let's celebrate. And that was, the rest of the year was horrible after that. Horrible. Because I didn't take it as,
this is what we're here for.
This is what we're here for. Like,
right.
You don't go to college to play good college golf. What I've said is this. When you go to college, I don't care. I don't care what you do. If you're going to go be an engineer, you're going to go be a pro athlete, you're going to be a teacher, whatever you do, college is there for you to become an expert at what you want to do.
100%.
For me, I didn't care that much about school. And people are like, why didn't you take school more seriously? I go, because that's not what I was there for. I was there to become an expert at what I want to do.
Right.
And I mean, I still passed all my classes, made B's, C's, A's, whatever the spectrum was, right? But I knew what would I rather be doing? Studying for 2 hours or going and practicing for 2 hours.
Right.
I know for a fact studying isn't going to get me further in what I want to do. That doesn't mean don't study.
Right.
That doesn't mean that at all.
Right.
But go do what you have to do to get better at what you want to do.
Totally.
And that's something that I did, and I didn't do it well enough my first few years of being a pro. And now after that stretch, 2 years ago now, year and a half, I finally understood that, hey, you better take it seriously the weeks off. And that's something that I wasn't as prepared for in college.
Yep.
I'm now a lot more prepared for, because like I said, I'm a yes guy. Being a professional requires you to say no to a lot of things, and that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, and that's definitely it's definitely hard to feel like you're going to let somebody down too by saying no to something, right? But at the same time, what you were saying there about studying in school and all that is like in college, right? You take 15 hours, right? And then you have the NCAA limits how many hours you can practice officially as your team for 20.
As a team,
right? So that's 35 hours. So you're still not even pulling a full-time job between your education and your classes and what your coach is allowed to officially put on the docket. So then you have the other however many hours are left in a week to figure it out, right? So maybe there's a project, studying, whatever minimal requirement to get through that. Yeah. And then the rest of it is, are you going to goof off with your buddies, or are you going to go put the work in? And to be fair, right, everybody hits a point where you need a breather.
Yeah. Oh, right? Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's where, weeks off, right? People talk about like active recoveries and stuff like that, right? Yeah. Just because you take a week off doesn't mean you have to completely hit the brakes on everything.
Yeah. So that's something like I was listening to an interview with like Julian Edelman, and they asked him, they were like, when you were with Tom Brady, like, did y'all ever have like days off? Like, did y'all ever stop working? He was like, of course we did. But who wouldn't need time off?
David Goggins.
Like, yeah.
That guy's a freak.
David Goggins is a freak. Another topic for another day.
Yeah. But I get what you're saying.
And Edelman was like, but look, when I took my time off, it was premeditated.
Right.
I knew that this day was going to be off. I knew that I could go as hard as I wanted for X amount of days, but when this time came, it was a job for me to shut down my mind. And that's something that I've tried to do too. Like I told my strength and conditioning coach down in down in Sea Island. I said, look, I've got 4 weeks that I want to peak physically. Sarasota, which was last week. Nashville, which is in 7 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now. Wichita and Omaha, 2 other tournaments. I want to be as prepared as I can. And if that comes with a trade-off of not being as prepared for other events, that's fine. If that comes with the price of being exhausted after the tournament, that's fine. I can take the time off. But when you take the time off, understand that you will have needed to work that much harder to get ready for what you got ready for.
Right.
And then you can take the time off and relax your mind.
Right.
Like you said, it's active recovery.
Totally.
And that's what it is.
And that's what, because of Tiger, right? Because of Tiger, now all the tour players focus on the majors, right?
Yeah.
And their schedule now revolves around 5 tournaments. And the first one's coming up in a couple weeks, right? The players. Then you have the Masters. Then you have U.S. Open, and then PGA.
Yeah.
And that's what it was rare. You never saw Phil play in the tournament prior to the U.S. Open, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he started playing Southwind.
Yep.
And then sometimes that schedule changes, but at the same time, everybody's plan to prepare to peak, like you were saying, is different, right? And it was funny because I was listening to, Tiger obviously just had the wreck, and so I've had the Golf Channel on as much as I can bear it.
Of course.
And they were talking about how some of the guys on tour right now, like your Brysons, your Rory, aren't at peak level yet, and they're 2 weeks out from the first big event.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then it's like, all right, what calculations do you need to be making?
Yeah.
What adjustments are you making? Where's the loopholes? What do you got to figure out? And people talk about peaking, and it's always, when I talk to kids about it, they're always kind of like intrigued by it, because it's like, what do you mean when you peak? It's like, well, you're laying out your preparation for that event. Like that's, for kids, like maybe the U.S. Junior Am is your major.
Oh yeah, that's the tournament that you need to be prepared for.
Right. And so then you get your practice round done early.
Yeah.
You go play it early. You then spend the next 3 to 4 weeks hitting the shots you're going to hit at that event, not hitting the shots you just hit at Hillwood last weekend. You know what I mean? And that's where I think the prep is, always interesting. So when you're, out on the road and you're trying to keep your body and your mind healthy, and you're playing like 4 weeks in a row, how are you scheduling your time so that you have maybe a Monday off or something like that, so you don't burn out? Because that's a lot of people don't realize how much golf 4 weeks in a row is at the tour level.
Oh my goodness, it's 28 days.
Yeah.
Right? 28 straight days with, you might get 2 days off, maybe.
Right.
Depending on if you want to take a travel day off. But you're still traveling, so is it really a day off? For me, like going into Sarasota last week, to give a little perspective on Sarasota, the fairways are really wide. The greens are really sloped. The greens are fast, and off the greens are a bunch of runoff Bermuda fairways, right? So I did not care about what the conditions were. I made sure that I was able to hit the ball solid off the face with driver, which on such wide holes, that's all you need, right? You don't need to hit it within a 5-yard gap like you do at some other tournaments.
You got a lot of wiggle room.
But the most important thing is to catch it solid off the face. Another thing was I practiced into the grain chips a ton. I practiced being able to hit the ball solid off the face on iron shots, because with slopey, fast greens, you can work it off some slopes, or you got to make sure you put it in the center of the green to where then you can work your way to the corners. Things like that. Like whenever I was getting ready for the tournament, I played in 3 mini tour events. I missed the cut in all 3 before the tournament started. I played in 3 in a row every other week leading up to it. 5 weeks out, 3 weeks out, a week away. I missed the cut by a lot going into all 3 of them. I missed the cut by a lot. Yeah. Which mini tour events are the worst. They're the worst. For any kid who thinks that professional golf is going to be just sunshine and rainbows, you're so wrong. Okay? Whatever. But I got ready for those, and I missed the cut by a lot. But I knew that I was getting closer to what I needed to be prepared for. I was willing to have that trade-off of missing cuts in a mini tour event, where I'm playing against guys that
don't have status.
Yeah, don't have status. I feel like I'm better than on a very consistent basis. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's a shot at your pride a little bit, being like, why is this guy beating me right now?
Sure.
Like, I know I'm better than them.
Right.
But it took a little bit of discipline to go, don't worry about that. Work on what you need to work on. Get ready for that big tournament. Mm-hmm. And also, like you're asking about the Monday through Wednesday, Monday through Wednesdays are a grind too, because you need to have a very specific, detailed plan about what you're doing that day, right? Mm-hmm. Like for me, last week, they did Pro-Am 9 holes on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Usually they're 18. This tournament in particular, there was 9 holes. I knew I was playing the back 9. Okay, I'm going to play the front 9 on Monday, work out in the morning, go play 9 holes. Mm-hmm. Tuesday, get out there early, about 2 hours early, go practice, work on putting and chipping and, you know, just hitting the ball solid, work on my swing a little bit, go play 18 holes, get off the course. Don't wear your body down anymore.
Right.
Wednesday, I hit balls for about an hour and putted a good amount and went and played 9 holes and had fun.
Right.
Because I'm going to have fun, but it's still me prepping for the tournament by relaxing the mind.
Sure.
Right? Like whatever you do, you've got to make sure you have a reason for doing it. You can't you don't need to just go blindly into a week and say, well, how am I feeling?
Right.
You know, like what do I need to do this week? You need to know what works for you and what gets you prepared for Thursday to Sunday.
No, that's very true. I mean, like when you say like relaxing the mind, right? There's a guy in town that does hypnotherapy, right? The hypnosis stuff, Steve Rain, one of Virgil's buddies. And I went and saw him a few years back.
Did it work?
Yes. Surprisingly, yes. To make a long story short, I went in there, walked out after 2 hours, and felt like I had just gotten 50 pounds lighter. Like, it was the most bizarre experience of my life. But what he taught me was, like, people talk about like meditation, right? You know, the Tiger was he did hypnosis and meditates and this, that, and the other. When you meditate and you're trying to relax your mind, you have to start that with a purpose. Yeah. Right? So, like, the point of my meditation today is whatever, right? Bank. And too many people just think it's sitting in a chair in an empty room and just closing your eyes for 10 minutes. And it's like, no, man, like you still have to put your mind through the process. And like Focus Band was a really cool tool for me. Yeah. Have you ever dabbled in that? Played with that little thing?
I haven't, no.
Oh man. So it's trippy because it doesn't teach you how to get into the zone, quote unquote, but it shows you when your brain's not in the zone. Right? And so that was, you talk about getting like angry and pissed off, right? I put this, Virgil and I are in the room together with the inventor of it, right? Yeah. We strap the thing on our head, and it's an app on your phone. Yeah. I'm staring at it, and Virgil just instantly goes into it, right? Because he's been working with Steve for a while. And I'm sitting there staring at the screen, and it's just like blank. And I look at Virgil's, and Virgil's just like humming away, and I'm like, all right, what the hell? What is going on? Why can I not take this thing to go green? And I spent an hour and a half just staring at my freaking phone, trying to like learn how to get in the zone or whatever. I was struggling. And like I had a headache, and Brandon was like, "Hey, you just worked out your brain." I'm like, "Worked out my brain? What are you talking about? Work out my brain?" And so it's, you know, there's enough mental exercise. But what was always interesting to me with the focus and the meditation part was, in the morning I was always really able to get into a deeper state, like really quick. Yeah. And so, you know, they have a rating of 5 to 100, right? And so if you're at 100, I mean, you're like unconscious basically. Yeah. But then after teaching 7 hours, 8 hours a day, get home, and I would sit on the couch and try and do it, it was like I couldn't get to like 50. Like it was just like
I could see that. Yeah.
It was just a struggle, and you know. But again, for me, it was just like learning how to meditate, learning how to let my brain relax. And what was crazy was for me, everything started to feel like I started to find like the purpose of it and like what I wanted to do. And people go to those float tanks. You ever done a float tank?
Yeah.
Though I haven't done it yet. It's on my to-do list. But the friends I've had do it have said it's like it is an experience for like mental reset.
Yeah.
Like, one of my buddies said I went in there, did it for an hour, came out, and I was like mission ahead. And I was like, I need that in my life.
That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Shoot. That's something I need.
Gosh. Yeah. I think you know it where we're at in golf now. the quality is so good. Like you were talking about, everybody can strike it good.
Yeah.
It's pretty much how close you're going to hit to the hole and how many putts can you make is just going to win it away. And I think, this is my personal opinion, for the next level of golfer to emerge, it has to come from the brain. Because physically, we have more data now available, how the body moves.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at, no kidding, every single week, you'll see a quarter of the field have their TrackMans.
Right.
You're able to dial in the distance that your 7-iron goes 180 yards out there within 3 inches.
Oh, yeah.
Within 3 inches.
It's crazy.
Of course people are going to get better. You're able to look at a TrackMan now and see how well your putting stroke is. Mm-hmm. You have these rails now that tell you exactly what a putt does from 20 feet.
Right.
You have a Whoop band now that tells you what your heart rate is at night or how well you slept. The margin of error is so small now between first place and fifth place.
Totally.
It's so small. You have to find another realm that ends up giving you an edge.
100%. Do you feel like when you're talking about the mini tour stuff versus at the Korn Ferry, do you feel like the difficulty of the course plays a factor into how low these guys go? So like you're saying, those mini tour events, those guys go out and shoot like under 65 4 days in a row.
Those golf courses are a joke.
Yeah. So because like what I try to explain to a few kids is like it's almost harder to make it on the mini tour circuit. Because
absolutely.
Somebody every week is going to shoot 20 under.
Well, yeah, because okay. To put it in perspective, if there was a mini tour event at Brentwood Country Club, right, not a hard golf course. If we had the conditions right now,
very scoreable
with the same field as say a mini tour event that I played down there. I'd say for 3 days, the winning score would probably be, say they tuck the pins a little bit, 7-6-6.
Yeah.
12, 19 under.
Yeah.
19 under would probably win, maybe 20.
Yeah.
So 20 under would win in 3 rounds, okay? It would probably go like this. 20 under, 18 under, 17, 16, 16 would be the top 5, 6, right? Within 4 shots. At a place like the Grove North, if you had the same kind of players, 3 rounds, I'd say 12 would win.
Right.
12 would probably win. And then it would go 12, 10, 9, 8, 7. The separation happens on tougher courses because not everyone can hit every fairway. Not everyone can hit good iron shots to within 15 feet.
Right.
Not everyone can get up and down from tough spots. At a place like Brentwood or these mini tour courses, the separation doesn't happen, right? If you have a decent day with wedges, you can shoot 6 or 7 under every time.
Right.
That's the difference between that and Korn Ferry courses where you got to have at least 3 or 4 parts of your game on in order to win or be in contention. Like you just have to. In mini tour courses, all you need is one. Right. Really, all you need is one or 2, maybe. Like that's my thing with mini tour courses, and that's why I think Korn Ferry, Mackenzie Tour does a good job with it too. PGA Tour courses, they challenge more parts of your game, and it exposes the best players.
Right.
That's why it's a PGA Tour sanctioned event.
Totally. I mean, and that's been my pitch with the tour, and everybody's getting in this whole they're hitting it too far thing again, like it's 2005 with Tiger. And my thing was look what happened at the U.S. Open, right? Look what Bryson did.
Yeah.
He was the only man under par, right? But he also was able to slash out a 9-iron from 7-inch deep rough when nobody else could muster that.
No one could do it.
Right?
No
but
one.
it put a premium on being able to hit the fairway if you can't get it out of that stuff, right? And that was something that even like Tiger was known for back in his heyday, was that he could. I mean, there's highlight reels of him with 6 inches of grass wrapped around the iron, just slashing it out of there
and hitting it on the green.
Oh yeah, and hitting it close.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so, when you're out playing on the tour and you're watching you know, and you're playing with all these other tour professionals, you know, what's your opinion on the distance avenue and where the tours are heading as far as, you know, what do you think's right? Should we keep the distance out there? Do you think people want to see you guys go crazy low? Do you think you want to see you guys? Do you want to suffer and not shoot under par as much?
Now, to make a course tougher, what do you need more water? No. Do you need to make these bottleneck fairways to where people that hit it 300 hit it every fairway and the guys that hit 330 don't hit fairways? No, you don't need that. Just put a few more trees. Mm-hmm. Like, if there's winged foot, right? Mm-hmm. It's this tight.
Yep.
If you miss the fairway in certain spots, if you missed it on the right side, the trees aren't in the way.
Right.
The thing that makes like the bomb and gouge, you know, everyone said that about the U.S. Open. Mm-hmm. The reason why I think having some trees in places is because if you bomb it out there and you have good technique and you hit it good, fine, you're supposed to play well. Mm-hmm. But what's the art in that? That's all science, right? You just hit a fairway, you hit a green.
Right.
If you miss a fairway at winged foot, you would just slash it as hard as you could, and you didn't have to worry about where the ball went because it would go somewhat close to where you wanted it to.
Right.
Put a few trees here and there. You've got to hit these low punch shot sliders or these like little high draw hook shots around a tree, things like that. It creates the what's the right? Oh my goodness! It just forces you to
be more creative with your
shot. It forces you to be more creative instead of just stepping up and going, all right, let's just slap it out there and see what happens.
Yeah,
that's what I think. I don't think putting more bunkers is important because people are getting better out of bunkers.
Totally.
I don't think it's important to tuck more pins. I don't think it's important to make courses 50 yards longer on every hole. I just played that course in first 3 holes in Sarasota, 450, 540. They moved us up to 510 par 4, 250 par 3 first 3 holes.
Dang.
Yeah, and you're sitting there going, why?
Hitting 3-wood off the par 3.
Yeah, it's no kidding. Practice round.
Yeah.
3-wood.
Yeah.
Pin high.
A little into the wind.
I bombed it. Bombed it to pin high.
Well, and Miguel Jimenez had an interesting quote last week. He said that the easiest solution is to reduce the number of clubs from 14 to 10. And now,
that'd be fun.
Yeah, right. And
it would also help caddies.
Sure, right. It helped everybody. The commentator over there trying to figure out what club he's hitting if you only got 10 to pick from. But I think that was an interesting point I had never thought about, and I thought that was pretty genius.
I hadn't thought of that either.
And I was like, okay, so now
why is 14 the club?
Right.
Like, why is that the number?
So if you go now from 14 to 10, now you have tour players who have to decide, okay, you know, where am I pulling 4 clubs out of the bag? Maybe I don't need 5 wedges. Maybe I only need 4 wedges.
And think about how much more strategy you would need on the course.
Right. Well, you have to shape it better too.
Yeah.
Right?
You have 265 to a front right pin, and you've got either a club that flies straight 265 and you can go over the green, or you have a club that flies 230.
Right.
A 35-yard gap, and you're thinking, oh, shoot. All right, let's bend this sucker as much as you can, one way or that way. Like, that's a really good point.
It'd be interesting to see happen in.
I don't think it'll ever happen.
No, I doubt it. But it would be interesting to see if it did, because I think, you know, it would kind of force, because like right now, trying to fit somebody for golf clubs as a teaching professional is a nightmare, because I giggle because I have kids now that swing at 10 miles an hour slower than me that are hitting it as far as me, because they're 7-irons or 5-iron. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? And it's like, nope. Anyways, besides the point. But now, if that were to happen to be the case, right, in tournaments you had to play 10 clubs, the gapping between clubs would be an interesting argument, because now you might have, like you said, 30 yards between sticks, and you have to figure out how to hit the longer club 15 yards short. And as a junior coach, I can tell you there's not enough junior golfers that know how to do that.
No.
I mean, it's a very hard element. So when you're out practicing, and we're heading to the end of the show, but I wanted to get this one in for the kids. Is like when you're out practicing and you're trying to assess like weaknesses in your game, right? Or learning learning a new shot to strengthen that part of the game. What's your approach to making those changes? And then when do you feel confident enough to implement that into an event?
Well, for a junior golfer, to be very specific about talking to a junior golfer, you need to first identify what part of your game needs to be fixed, right? Like, understand it. If you don't hit enough fairways, go work on your swing. If you blade a bunch of bunker shots, spend all day in the beach. I don't care. Just go.
Right.
And if you feel like your putting isn't good from inside 5 feet, go practice putting until you can't move your legs anymore. Just figure out what's holding back your game. Mm-hmm. And I've always heard, you know how some people say work on what you're good at 80% of the time, what you're bad at 20% of the time. Mm-hmm. Why? Okay. There is both sides to it, but I think if you can become good at everything, mm-hmm. no one's ever going to be able to find a weak spot.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
My weakness right now in my mind is I feel like my short game, my pitching on tight lies has to get better. I feel like I'm really good out of the rough. I'm great out of bunkers. Just those tight lies. Identify what you're bad at. Identify what you need to get better at. Mm-hmm. Figure out what makes you hit it well. Mm-hmm. Not just did you hit that one well. Not just go out there, put a bag down and go, let's just hit them until I hit it good and hope that 2/3 of them are good.
Right.
You go out there with a very specific intent of, okay, here's my setup. Here's what I need to be ready for this shot when it comes. Put yourself in the toughest spots possible. Into the grain, basically mud, if you need to. If you're on the range, go hit out of some divots. I don't care. Go learn how to, if you're bad at driving, learn how to shape it both ways if you need to. If you're bad at putting, go putt 100 3-footers in a row and make them all. Mm-hmm. Things like that. Give yourself a challenge. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I always try to do. I never go try to practice the easy shots. Who cares about the easy shots?
Right.
No one freaks out when someone makes a 2-footer for par.
Right.
No one freaks out about that.
Right.
People freak out when you hit a good bunker shot 30 yards over a tier to a top pin. That's what people freak out about. You've got to be so comfortable in tough situations that when you are in that situation on the course, that'll probably be easier. Mm-hmm. Then you can step up and feel confident over what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a great example of making your practice harder than the play.
Much harder,
right?
Absolutely.
And that is something I remind my kids all the time. Like, your practice should feel more difficult than being out on the golf course. The golf course should be the easy part.
Absolutely.
And I think you made a great point there. Like, nobody is wigging out when you tap in for even a tap in for birdie, but
no one cares
when you hit a shot that everybody's kind of sitting there going, "Man, he's in jail." How do you just put that on the green?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so, like, what's your barometer for your comfort zone when you learn a new shot and you put something in your bag? How good do you have to be at it before you feel like you can trust it on the golf course?
You kind of have to throw yourself into it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
trial by fire.
Yeah. For that chipping hole thing that I said. Mm-hmm. I feel like once I get that one shot that's into the grain really tight, and I just nip it to 3 bounces and stop.
Right.
Once that happens, all anxiety is going to go away.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Right.
Or shoot, you got a bunker shot, you've bladed a lot of them, or you just can't get out. You get in there, you feel good, and you just hit one really solid. Mm-hmm. You're past it. Mm-hmm. That's what it's just trial by fire, like you said. You got to throw yourself into it.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot.
Be willing to fail. Like,
that's where I was going.
Be willing to mess up. Mm-hmm. Who cares?
That's the biggest thing I see holding kids back is that the failure, the fear of failure, overrides their willingness to succeed, and so that because of the fact that it could go wrong, I won't attempt. Yep. And it's like you have to try it. And Michael Jordan has like one of the best quotes ever. He lists like how many missed shots he's had, how many game winners he's missed, and whatever. But he's still the GOAT in basketball, right? And I think that's where when you learn something new, you still have to have a comfort zone with it enough to even attempt it. But then at the same time, you have to attempt it when it matters, and it might fail, and it's just part of the hustle.
It could,
yeah. So Dawson, when we wrap this show up right now, and you look back at a younger version of yourself who wants to play on the big screen, what advice would you give yourself now, looking back 6-7 years before you made this call to go play on television?
I would have learned to have said no more. That's what I wanted to learn. I feel like the work ethic hasn't gone away. The relationships, I don't feel like I've destroyed any relationships along the way. I still practice as hard as I can. My attention to detail's gotten better, obviously. And as a high school golfer, your attention to detail doesn't need to be that great yet. It doesn't need to be. You just need to go out and love what you do. And I would say learn. Figure out if you love it or not. Once you do that, go all in. That's the advice. And if you don't love it, if you're not willing to put, I'm not talking to myself as much right now. If you're not willing to put the, practice is over, the team's going home, and you go, why not shoot 38? Oh, because I missed 3 putts inside 10 feet. Let's go work on it. Things like that. While everyone else is maybe going to grab dinner after they get practice done, or after a match or something, everyone's driving home and they're just chilling, hanging out. You go practice a little bit. Things like that. If you're willing to do those kind of things, if you love it, go all in. Learn to say no more.
Yeah, and it comes back to the sacrifice thing, right?
Yeah.
Be willing to sacrifice some stuff to get better. First one there, last one to leave.
Yeah.
Kind of mentality. Dawson, thank you for showing up, man. It was fun to chat with you, and appreciate you coming out on your days off. And
oh yeah, man.
I look forward to watching your career as you kind of flourish and keep having success. And best of luck to you, brother.
Appreciate it, man. It's been fun.